Alright guys, welcome to Primetime Mitch, and different studio at the moment. We are on the verge of moving house, which I'm looking forward to. I'm going to get a brand new studio for Primetime Mitch. That's going to be very exciting. But for now, we're going to make do, and we are talking about October's movies. Now, if you watch my social media, I urge you to go check that video out before you watch this. But it is number 18 to number 6 of my movies watched in October. There's a big rundown there of all the movies that didn't quite make this top 5. If you want to check that out, then come back to this. You'll get the whole shebang. All of these picks are based around my letterboxd entries. If you want to refer to those as we go along from the previous video and for this one, links down below to that and every other social media account I have. There may be some spoilers in this. I'm going to try and not give too many, but obviously if I want to talk about these films in a bit more depth, I might give away a couple of things. So if you really don't want to know about any of these movies in the top 5, just check the timestamps below and skip ahead. Much appreciated, everybody. Your support for Primetime Mitch is the driving force behind me doing this. If you could hit that like button and that subscribe button below and that notification bell, we shall get into the top 5 for October. Making it at number 5 on the list is Drag Me to Hell from 2009. Ashamed to admit, I had never seen this movie until a few weeks ago. It was never one that appealed to me at the time because I wasn't really enjoying horror in 2009. I didn't like the Friday the 13th remake, which is a controversial opinion. I was smarting from Final Destination 4, and even a year down the line, I was fed the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and just nothing was appealing to me. So I stopped really watching horror at that point. Now, going into this movie, I know it's a Sam Raimi directed film, so I know there's going to be some good things in there. There's going to be some goofy, crazy, batshit, off-the-wall stuff that I'm either going to love or I'm going to think probably didn't suit it. I actually think this movie was better than I expected. It's very, very divisive from what I've seen. People either think it's the worst piece of shit they've ever seen or they think it's an absolute joy. I'm leaning towards joy, obviously, with this being in the top 5. This movie, long and the short of it, follows Christine Brown, a young loan officer that wants to get a promotion and will do anything she possibly can to do it, even if it sort of goes against how she feels and her principles, because she is a good person underneath. And she refuses to give allowance and leeway to this unwell, creepy gypsy lady, Mrs. Ganush. And from there on, her life spirals as she is put under this curse. Now, I like this as a premise. I will say that there are parts in this movie where I just think they're being gross for gross sake. You know, there's only so much bile I can see and things being thrown into Alison Lohman's mouth that I feel she deserves a paycheck for this one, by the way. And I do think it was done just for grossing everybody out. And I got a bit tired of that after a while. There is a lot of CGI in this movie, but I'm okay with it in this one because of the comedy elements. Because the comedy's so prevalent throughout this movie, I'm fine with the CGI being a little goofy, as long as it never looks absolutely terrible, which it really doesn't. There are some really goofy effects, the hand in the mouth, the gulp, which I actually did laugh at, which again, if it gets a reaction out of me, then great. I do look at this as a comedy horror more than a horror, but what I will say about this movie is it never becomes dull. I do like the characters. I think Alison Lohman plays Christine very well. I think Justin Long's very good in this, actually. And though somewhat of a spoiler, he is doomed to a life of misery, most likely after this, he does actually survive until the final credits. Where this movie absolutely excels is the finish. I love that final scene because it is both comedic, outrageous, silly, but also really vicious. It's a brutal finish to the movie, and it's always the thing that people talk about. I see the memes and the clips of it everywhere, and I've always sort of seen it and gone, that looks interesting, but when you put it in the context of the film, it's actually worse in a good way. So I love the ending of this film, and I actually think the ending is what put this into the top 5. Had it not had that ending, I think it'd have slipped into maybe 6 or 7. But yeah, Drag Me to Hell. Finally got to see it. Didn't dislike it all. Coming in at number 4 is this year's Beast of War, directed by 𝐒𝐈𝐊𝐄, who gave us Sting. I've not got around to seeing that one yet. But this was a really impressive movie in a time when we've had so many shark movies come out. I've seen a fair few recently, Dangerous Animals, Something in the Water included. And I've always been quite positive about the ones that try to be a little bit different. Obviously, the ones that put practical effects to use. This one focuses on the war, and it is a group of Australian soldiers, which always sort of gives us some good camaraderie between characters. You get a lot of good character development. I know sometimes that can be almost a cop-out to say that they're interesting because of the dialect and the banter that they have, but it does help. And these guys are blown out of the water and find themselves in a very sort of USS Indianapolis situation where they are being picked apart by a shark. They've also got the threat of the Japanese army's attacks as they are floating in these shark-infested waters. Now, what I did like about this movie, it was a bit slow to get going. They did a lot of establishment at the start, but when you get into that situation that they're in, it looks so haunting. Some of the colours, particularly the dark red, I don't know, there's a lot of red in this, maybe again to symbolise the blood and the water, but it's still that air of inevitability that you're always in danger and somebody is going to be next. There's a deep fog over the picture as well. It really drags you into those scenes and you close in with the soldiers at all times. Now, I know you can tell they're not in the sea in this one. I don't know what budget this movie had. I don't think it was very high, but you can tell that this is sort of a water setup, but you don't see, other than sort of separate establishing shots, you never see them floating in the sea really to large scale degree. But it does get you close and in there with the soldiers and how it's feeling for them and how close they have to be together to stick together so that nothing worse happens to them. Now, obviously, there's a lot of personal problems between the guys in this movie. Mark Cole-Smith and Sam Delich, they sort of lead the cast, which is overall very impressive. There's a lot of good performances in this. There were certain moments towards the end of this movie, and one in particular, where I felt like a lot of the fighting was just really unnecessary in the situation they were in, and it ultimately is costly in one part in particular, which it left a bad taste in my mouth. I was not happy about that. But the shark looks great. He is a practical shark, and they do try and show him coming out of the water as much as they possibly can. Now, I know they probably want to show off the effects that they've utilised, and why not? I've read some reviews that have said that maybe it comes out the water too many times just for the hell of it because it's a practical effect. And we've got to that stage now where we're really proud of showing off practical effects because we've been hit with CGI for so long. I was all for that design, and it looked really nice. There's a lot of tension in the movie, a lot of emotion in the film, and as a survivor horror thriller involving sharks, it's never too gratuitous to the point where it's just silly. It's never over the top, and you still get that human aspect of it flowing through the veins of the story all the way through from start to finish. I do think there's a combat scene towards the end that goes on a little bit too long for my liking and almost steps out of the genre and becomes something else, but overall it doesn't really damage the film too much, and it made it to number 4 this October, so it's done something right. I would have seen this at Grimfest had I worked this year, but I'm doing other things this year, so I had to skip 2025's Grimfest Festival. If you get a chance to go next year, do it. It's fantastic. But this was showing, and I got to see it a little bit later, but I still loved it. In at number 3 is 2017's Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, or Salazar's Revenge, depending on where you see it. I rank these high because I just like the films. I really enjoy the vibe of them. So a lot of people found this one to be really disappointing, found it to be a cash grab, found it to be more of the same. I will do a ranking of these movies at some point because I'm a big fan of the franchise. I've got a lot to say about each, so I will be a bit briefer on this one. This one is a good movie, I think. It's better than its predecessor. I was not absolutely massively impressed with On Stranger Tides. I thought it went in a bit of a weird direction and made everything somewhat too detached from the first 3. It looked like it was supposed to be like another story, and then they kind of just sort of sat that one on its own and went in this direction, which was more nostalgic. I think Jack Sparrow in this is too drunk. I love his character. I've played his character on Halloween nights and things like that, but I do not think that he, in this movie in particular, comes across that great or really steals the scenery like he does in the previous. There was hints of this in On Stranger Tides when he was relegated to like a background character, but this one, I think he just hams it up too much. It's almost the opposite direction. One thing that really does excel in this movie, I think, is the use of Barbossa. I was disappointed in him in the previous film because he just looks wrong as one of the noblemen, and I wanted to see him as the real swashbuckling, dirty pirate that he really is, and he's more of that in this. He's obviously more wealth in this, more treasure has fallen into his lap, and he is just absolutely reveling in it, and he is more himself in this, and you also get a lot of his story, and it's quite gut-wrenching at the end really when you see his story come to a head. Paul McCartney appearing is just mind-boggling. and somewhat distracting. It's almost like it's been tacked in there as a comic relief sketch or something. Javier Bardem is a great addition to this cast, I thought, as Salazar. Very creepy makeup, really weird, deep, throaty, horrible sort of ghostly voice as well. I actually thought he was one of the strongest parts of this movie because he put a lot of horror into it. Great role, and he's just like that anyway, perfectly cast in that. There is some really nice fan service, I think, seeing the Dutchman come out at the beginning, and the conclusion also I think is a nice conclusion. The post credits is very interesting, but for all that nonsense that went down, we never really got a continuation of that, unfortunately. But this I don't mind as a sequel. 6 years after 2011's Stranger Tides, I'm glad they gave us this because I would have been more disappointed had they ended on the last one before it. So it's a controversial opinion, but it's number 3 in this October when I look at what I've watched. Okay, we're season heavy with this. Number 2 is going to be Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. This has been more appreciated over time. If you want to hear me talk more in depth about this movie, I have a tier list and a rankings video of all 13 Halloween movies on this channel. You'll find them in the link above, and scroll through the playlist, it'll be in there in the rankings one. But I talk in depth about how much I enjoy this movie. It was not well received at the time, and I'm not surprised. Badly marketed. I didn't see the reasoning behind making Halloween 2 if they were going to go in a different direction for the third. It would have been easier just to make Halloween 1, then a different story for 2, and a different story for 3, and then we wouldn't have had them clambering for Michael Myers and wondering why he was absent from the third movie. Tom Atkins does a brilliant job in this, always a smooth man. Love watching his performances, love watching how intense and how into it he gets. You're with him the whole way through this while he is trying to fight off this evil toy company which is hell-bent on destroying children all over the world. It's a brutal premise. And I think people sometimes aim that this movie is a bit corny or cheesy or something like that, but it really is a horrific premise. And some of the scenes, some of the practicals, some of the imagery, especially the death of Marge, which sticks with me forever and a day. One of the things that I took from this movie that actually had me watching through my hands, that is a horrific scene. And of course later on with the family and what happens to their kids, and you just get this horrible mean streak of an underbelly in this movie, which is contrasting to the look of it. You know, you've got the witch mask, the pumpkin mask, the skull mask. It all looks a bit corny. Some of the effects are somewhat corny, but they're still decent. They're all practical. They look gnarly. I think this film is rightly getting the plaudits it's getting now. It's a fantastic movie as a horror on its own, as Season of the Witch. Take Halloween 3 out of it and just call it Season of the Witch, and you'd have had one of the most successful horrors of the 80s. I firmly believe that. I mean, I didn't really like Halloween's sequel anyway, so I would have really preferred it had they done a separate story. For number 2, then done this one, and then maybe gone back and revisited Michael from then on, because I love Halloween 4. We'll get to that. But I do think the marketing of this movie, the positioning of this movie, the decisions made before it hurt it a great deal. And that's a shame that it's taken a couple of decades for people to start really appreciating it. I think it's a fantastic movie, and it gives you a lot of familiarity as well. Those wonderful masks, that jingle, which never leaves your head, and the stop it end as well. It's got so many famous moments in it. And for that, it rightly makes number 2. And I love watching it any chance I can possibly get, but mainly at Halloween. And in at number 1, controversial to some, but I've waxed lyrical about this for too long to care, it's Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This 1988 entry is the start of the Thorn trilogy, though it mentions nothing to suggest that it is anything to do with it. It just happens to start that story off, and we get all that cult story following this. I love this movie. I have talked ad nauseum about it. Please, again, if you want to see a more in-depth chat about why I love this movie so much, please check out the tier list and the ranking in particular of all 13 of these movies on my channel. There's also a little short on there talking about hot takes from Halloween movies, and this one is, I believe, my hottest take of some hot or not takes. I think this has everything. It looks so autumnal. The credit scene is beautiful at the start. I could watch that intro scene like on loop over and over again if I want to get that feeling of Halloween. Some great imagery there. Loomis is not too ridiculous, not too unlikable at this point. He's still a bit manic, he's still a bit desperate, but he's great in this, and he really carries the first half of this movie when he's trying to pursue Michael to Haddonfield and trying to stop him inflicting damage on the extended family of Laurie Strode. Now, this is where Jamie Lloyd is introduced to us. Danielle Harris does a brilliant job in this. She is perfectly cast as this traumatized young girl that's experiencing so many awful things. And if you think about this movie, it's almost like the first one, but just with more. It's got that feel, it's got that setting, it's got the neighborhood and the trick-or-treaters at night and that sinister dread around every corner, but you just get a bit more. You get more convoluted kills. You get more of Loomis, you get more of the journey from one place to the other. So it's not just all in Haddonfield. It's like he's got to get from A to B to find the family. There's a fantastic shot in the diner at the gas station when he looks through the door and he sees Michael with the bandages around his head. That was a great look. And moving on to that, the mask, I've defended it multiple videos. Again, if you look at the others, you'll see pulled out of a convenience store in a very good scene involving Jamie Lloyd. And that's what he wears for the movie. So anybody wanting the original mask, I just don't understand how that would have come about, but I always defend it for that. There are some mistakes going forward with masks in certain scenes, and it's not always amazing. I think some of the dialogue could have been cut. I think some of the scenes towards the very end of the film, I think could have been tidied up a little bit. But you have a fantastic final girl in Rachel who is grossly disposed of in the one after, and is kind of like every girl. She's a little bit like Nancy, really. So relatable, not overly tough, just a survivor, just a protector. You get a little drops of comedy in there as well with the hitchhiker that takes Loomis home. And it also has one of my favourite kills in the franchise of all time. One day I will rank all those, but the shotgun kill is outstanding. So yeah, Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers, it's always one of my favourite horror movies of all time. It's always one I try to watch as much at Halloween as possible, even possibly over the original, because I've seen that one so many times now. I can sort of do a couple of years without, but Halloween 4, I always try and put it on. I love it. I think it's one of the best sequels. Many people don't really rate it that highly or will put other ones above it, but this one is always nestled in at number 2 for me, behind the original, and I'm totally okay with it. That's my top 5 for October. It's very Halloween drenched, but it should be. I am a horror fan, so there will be a few horror films in all my lists, but certainly at this time of year. If you agree with my picks, or you think that maybe there's something I missed here, or something you'd like to say about my picks, or maybe even give your top 5. What have you watched this month that has been particularly stand out for you? It doesn't have to be new releases, it can be anything. As you've seen from the list on social media, from 18 to 6, there's a lot of years and decades in there covered from the 60s through till now. Please go check that social media video out if you get a chance on my Instagram and my TikTok. It will give you the full list before this top 5, so you can sort of see my journey towards it. But if you agree and you want to add your input into this, please drop a comment down below. I always like to read them and respond to them. Also hit that like button and that notification bell, and subscribe to Primetime Mitch. I am growing with every waking moment, and it's all down to you guys. Thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic Halloween. Do check out my Halloween content, all my 31 days shorts from last year and this year. They are very, very different in some aspects, but enjoy the rest of your spooky season. It's been a pleasure, and we head into November with a big anticipation for more watches and reviews down the line. Thanks guys, stay safe. Happy Halloween everybody. I hope you enjoyed this monthly roundup. Do check out the videos below for more content similar to this, and enjoy the remaining hours of your spooky season. Thanks for subscribing to Primetime Mitch, everybody.